Okay, today we're going to be diving into day 2 of our Unit 2, which has to do with exponents and square roots and cube roots. And so today we're going to talk specifically about cube roots. And the whole goal is to be able to compute the cube root of a number without a calculator. So when we look at cube roots, what we're looking at is pretty much doing the opposite of cubing a number. Just like yesterday when we talked about square roots, we were saying that if we took 2 to the second power, or excuse me, let's just say 4 to the second power, we got 16. Then if we took the square root of 16, we came back to 4. And so we started with 4 and we ended with 4. Because squaring a number and square rooting a number are opposites. Well, the same then goes for cubing a number and taking the cube root of a number. If we're going to, and so before we can cube root, we need to know how to cube a number, or taking it to the third power. Remember, 3 to the third power does not equal 3 times 3. Okay? 3 to the third power stands for 3 times 3 times 3. So we multiply our base number 3 different times because the exponent is 3. So when we're taking 3 times 3 times 3, what we get, or 3 to the third power then, would give us 3 times 3 is 9 times 3, which would be 27. 5 to the third power would be 5 times 5 times 5, and 5 times 5 is 25, and then times 5 again will give us 125. And then 10 to the third power would be written as 10 times 10 times 10, which 10 times 10 is 100 times 10 again, which would be 1,000. So again, today we're going to be dealing with more of the cube root side of it, but you have to understand that it's the opposite of cubing a number. So we wanted to really kind of review how to cube a number before we take the cube root. So now, again, as I said, we start with 4. If we cube it, we get 4 times 4 times 4, which gives us 64. Then if we take the cube root of that, we're saying what number times itself again gives us 64. And the only number you can plug in there is 4. Because 4 times 4 times 4 is the only number that gives us 64. Now we pull one of those out, and the cube root is 4. But again, we started with 4, we ended with 4. They are opposites. They kind of undo each other. So now if we're given an equation with the cube root of a number, our whole goal is to have x all by itself, just like we did earlier in class. To get x all, right now, x is this third power. In order to get rid of it, we then have to do the opposite of cubing this. This is right now x cubed. Another way to say it is x to the third power. So now to do the opposite, we take the cube root, or the third root of x cubed. These then cancel out, and we're left with x. What we do to one side, we must do the exact same thing to the other side of the equation. We get the cube root of 512. The cube root of 512 is asking us what number times itself times another number gives us 512. So now, So now once we're trying to decide what number times itself, we want to take our calculator and we're going to just simply type into our calculator 3 different numbers. So I could start with 3. So we type in 3 times 3 times 3, and we get 27, which is definitely not 512, so we need to go bigger. Okay, so I'm going to pick another number. Let's pick 15. So now we do 15 times 15 times 15, which is 15 to the third power, and we get 3,375, which is a lot bigger than what we need. So that's definitely not right. So now we need to go bigger, or go smaller than 15, but bigger than 3, so we can try 7. 7 times 7 times 7, or 7 to the third power, gives us 343. We're definitely getting closer, but we're still not there. So we try 8. 8 to the third power gives us 512 exactly. So the cube root then of 512 is 8. So we get x equals 8. Let's try another problem. Again, we're trying to isolate a so that it's all by itself on one side of the equation, which means we then have to take the cube root of a on both sides. Cube root and the cube cancel out, and we're left with a. The cube root of 1331 is going to ask us, okay, what number times itself again gives us 1331? Well, we knew that 8 cubed gives us 512, so let's try, and we know that 10 cubed gives us 1,000, so let's try 12. 12 times 12 times 12. 12 to the third power is 1,728, which is too big. So if 10 is too small and 12 is too big, let's try 11. 11 to the third power does indeed give us 1331, so we pull 1 out. The cube root of 1331 is 11. And then our last example, again, this time the variable is on the other side, but that doesn't really matter. We still need to take the cube root because it's the opposite of cubing a number of both sides. So notice the main difference between square root and cube root is this little 3 right here. Now we're asking ourselves, the cube root of what number times itself again gives us 2197. Well, we know that it's going to have to be bigger than 11 because 1331 is smaller. So let's try 16. 16 to the third power gives us 4,096. It seems kind of high, so let's maybe drop it down to 13. 13 to the third power, typing it into my calculator, gives us 2197, so I did guess right. 13 goes here, y goes here, we're left with y equals 13. So hopefully that gives you a good feel for how to not only solve cube root equations, but also learning how to do the cube root in itself.